Om Namah Shivaya. Hi friends, how are you? In this video we are going to learn about important properties of cardiac muscle. Important properties of cardiac muscle. Heart is a vital organ as cessation of its activity for more than few minutes is detrimental to life. It pumps blood continuously throughout life due to many special properties inherent to its muscle. Okay. Heart is a vital organ as a cessation of its activity for more than few minutes is detrimental to life. It pumps blood continuously throughout life due to many special properties inherent to its muscle. Next, important properties of cardiac muscle. Okay, important properties of cardiac muscle. What are the important properties? Automaticity, rhythmicity, conductivity, contractility, excitability, distensibility, and long refractory period for which cardiac muscle can't be tetanized. Long refractory period for which cardiac muscle can't be tetanized, and functional syncytium, extrasystole and compensatory phase, all are non-lump, staircase phenomenon, length tension relationship, frequency force relationship, load velocity relationship. Okay, from which in experimental conditions, the properties from number 1 to 6 can be studied in a beating heart. Okay, 1 to 6 can be studied in a beating heart, and number from 7 to 12 can be studied in quiescent heart. Okay, 7 to 12 studied in quiescent heart, which is performed by placing stainous ligatures. Okay, see what we see in beating heart, that means 1 to 6. What are the 1 to 6? Automaticity, rhythmicity, conductivity, contractility, excitability and distensibility. These 6, okay, these 6 properties are seen in beating heart. Okay, in beating heart. And from 7 to 12, see what are the 7 to 12? Long refractory period, functional syncytium, extrasystole and compensatory phase, all are non-lump, staircase phenomenon and length tension phenomenon. Okay, these are the from 7 to 12 we see in quiescent heart. Okay, next we see one by one. First, automaticity. Automaticity. Automaticity is the property of automatic beating of the heart. Heart continues to beat even when it is completely denervated or isolated from the body. Okay. Automaticity is the property of automatic beating of the heart. Heart continues to beat even it is completely denervated or isolated from the body. The ability of the cardiac muscle to continue to contract regularly even in the absence of its nerve supply is referred to as automaticity. This is possible due to spontaneous generation of impulses by sinoatrial node, the primary pacemaker of the heart that displays pacemaker potential. The ability of the cardiac muscle to continue to contract regularly even in the absence of its nerve supply is referred to as automaticity. This is possible due to spontaneous generation of impulses by the sinoatrial node, the primary pacemaker of the heart that displays pacemaker potential. Next, automaticity is also property of other potential pacemakers of the heart like AV node, his Purkinje system and ventricular muscle, etc. Okay, automaticity is also property of other potential pacemakers of the heart like AV node, his Purkinje system, ventricular muscle. Next, rhythmicity. Heart does not beats automatically, not only beats automatically but also rhythmically. Rhythmicity refers to the rhythmic excitation of the heart. It is called autorhythmicity. Heart not only beats automatically but also rhythmically. Rhythmicity refers to the rhythmic excitation of the heart. This is called autorhythmicity. Okay. A normal heart beats in a perfectly regular system as the interbeat intervals remain virtually constant. This occurs due to Regularity in rhythmic discharge of the This occurs due to regularity in discharge of the pacemaker, which is normally the sinoatrial node. Thus, heart rate is function of the rate at which the pacemaker generates the impulse. Heart rate is the function of the rate at which the pacemaker generates the impulse. Sinoatrial node is the primary pacemaker of the heart. As the excitation begins in the sinoatrial node, the rate of discharge of sinoatrial node is 60 to 100 per minute, the highest among all the pacemakers. Therefore, the normal heart rate is 60 to 100 per minute. Sinoatrial node is the primary pacemaker of the heart. As the excitation begins in the sinoatrial node, the rate of discharge of sinoatrial node is 60 to 100 per minute, the highest among all the pacemakers. Therefore, normal heart rate is 60 to 100 per minute. Next, phase-making tissues in the heart. Normal heart has three intrinsic phase-making tissues: sinoatrial node, atrioventricular node, and his Purkinje fibers. However, when the intrinsic pacemakers fail to discharge, ventricular muscle generates the phase-making activity. The term phase-making activity refers to the spontaneous time-dependent depolarization that lead to action potential in an otherwise sequence cell or tissue. Any of the pacemaker can initiate the heartbeat. However, the pacemaker with highest frequency triggers the action potential that propagates throughout the heart. The sinoatrial node, being the fastest pacemaker, overrides the activity of all the other pacemakers. Therefore, sinoatrial node is the primary pacemaker. Thus, till sinoatrial node is functioning normally, heart beats according to sinoatrial nodal rhythm. Cardiac pacemakers have hierarchy among themselves. Failure of sinoatrial nodal rhythm result in activation of AV node. The next in the hierarchy to take over the pacemaker activity. AV node and other cardiac pacemakers are called secondary pacemakers. Next, demonstration of hierarchy pacemakers. The hierarchy of pacemakers can be demonstrated experimentally, usually in the frogs, by placing Stanius ligatures. In this experiment, the normal cardiogram is recorded, which denotes rate of sinus venosus, the natural pacemaker in the frog's heart. The first Stanius ligature is placed between the sinus venosus and atria, that is, on the white crescent line, and the cardiogram is recorded. This reflects the atrial rhythm, which is lower than the normal sinus rhythm, as the impulses are generated in the atrium. The cardiogram is then recorded after placing second Stanius ligature, which is placed between the atria and ventricles. This records ventricular rhythm, as the impulses are generated in the ventricle, which is slower than the atrial rhythm. Next, conductivity. Conductivity. The cardiac muscles conduct impulses generated in the heart. Impulse produced in sinoatrial node is conducted by specialized conducting pathway to the ventricular muscle. The impulse then spreads rapidly in cardiac muscle to the different parts of the heart. Mechanics of propagation of conduction of cardiac impulse. Next, contractility. Cardiac muscle contracts in response to a stimulus. In fact, heart contracts regularly and rhythmically in response to impulse generated by sinoatrial node. Ventricular contraction enables heart to pump blood into the circulation. Thus, increased contractility increases cardiac output and decreased contractility decreases cardiac output. The property of contractility of the heart is well appreciated even in an isolated preparation. Next, excitability. Cardiac muscle is an excitable tissue like nerve and other muscles. Excitability is the ability of the cardiac muscle to respond to different stimuli. Cardiac excitability can be altered by various factors like concentration of ions and hormones, and most importantly, the state of automatic activity, the systemic and parasympathetic, the sympathetic and parasympathetic tones. See once again. Cardiac excitability can be altered by various factors like concentration of ions and hormones, and mostly the state of automatic activity, that is the sympathetic and parasympathetic tones. Next, distensibility. Distensibility. This is the ability to stretch. Distensibility is the ability to stretch. This occurs due to compliance of the heart cardiac muscle. This is the ability to stretch. This occurs due to compliance of the cardiac muscle. This property helps in filling of atrial and ventricular chambers. This property helps in filling of atrial and ventricular chambers. And decreased ventricular distensibility decreases the end diastolic volume. Decreased ventricular distensibility decreases end diastolic volume. Next, long refractory period. Long refractory period. Ventricular muscle has a long refractory period. The refractory period of a muscle is the period during which muscle does not evoke a response no matter how strong is the stimulus. The refractory period is divided into absolute and relative refractory periods. Okay. Long refractory period. Ventricular muscle has long refractory period. Refractory period of the muscle is the period during which muscle does not evoke a response no matter how strong is the stimulus. Refractory period is divided into absolute and relative refractory periods. First, absolute refractory period of the ventricular muscle is about 200 milliseconds and relative refractory period is about 50 milliseconds. An important difference exists in the duration of action potential of cardiac and skeletal muscles. In cardiac muscle, the duration of action potential is almost same as the duration of mechanical response. The refractory period extends to the most part of the mechanical response in ventricular muscle. Therefore, always a new action potential generates a fresh mechanical response. Consequently, a fresh contraction can't occur before the completion of the previous mechanical response. Thus, mechanical response of ventricular muscle can't be measured, and therefore cardiac muscle can't be tetanized. In skeletal muscle, the mechanical response can be measured and muscle can be tetanized. As the duration of action potential is much shorter and the duration of as the duration of action potential is much shorter than the duration of mechanical contraction. Okay, it is in skeletal muscle. Next, functional syncytium. Next, functional syncytium. The cardiac muscle is the functional syncytium due to presence of numerous gap junctions. Cardiac muscle is a functional syncytium. Therefore, all muscle fibers contract almost simultaneously. Next, extrasystole and compensatory phase. When a sufficiently stronger stimulus is applied in the relative refractory period. When a sufficiently stronger stimulus is applied on the relative refractory period in the experimental recording of the normal cardiogram, an extracontractile response occur. This is called extrasystole. This contraction occurs earlier than the normal expected one. The natural stimulus, that is, impulse arising from the sinoatrial node, falls in the refractory period of the extrasystole and does not awake a response. Therefore, the natural contraction is missed. That's why a long pause is seen following the extrasystole, which is called compensatory pause. Extrasystole is not uncommon in the real life, and it may be always pathological. Usually, extra stimulus arises from an ectopic focus in the ventricle. The magnitude of contraction following the compensatory phase is usually higher one as the ventricle gets more time for filling duration of phase. The increased end diastolic volume increases the force of contraction by Frank-Starling mechanism. It is called post-extrasystolic potentiation. Next, post-extrasystolic potentiation can also occur independent of ventricular filling. Therefore, it is believed that post-extrasystole potentiation may be intrinsic mechanism of heart that occurs due to accumulation of more amount of calcium ions in the myocardial cell due to compensatory phase. Okay. However, in experimental setup for demonstration of extrasystole, the magnitude of contraction following the compensatory phase may not be the larger one as the experiment is performed placing the second stanier ligature, which is placed between the atria and ventricles. Therefore, ventricular filling is not altered in such a situation. Okay. Next, all or none law. Heart muscle follows all or none law. The all or none law states that the magnitude of response of a tissue to stimulus remains same irrespective of the strength of the stimuli. That means if the tissue responds, it responds optimally or it does not respond at all. When the stimulus is of subthreshold strength, the muscle does not respond to it at all. And if the stimulus is of threshold intensity, the muscle exhibits the optimum response. The height of contraction does not increase following the application of suprathreshold stimulus. This is called all or none law. All or none law occurs due to two reasons: all or none nature of the action potential, essential nature of the heart muscle which behaves as a single functional unit. The all or none law is applicable only when the conditions both internal and external remain same. The response may be changed if the condition is changed. For example, the heart is stimulated following the sympathetic activation, the magnitude of contraction increases. In this case, the excitability and contractility of the heart is changed by sympathetic stimulation and therefore change in magnitude of the contraction. Next, staircase phenomenon. Okay, first see the figure of the Alanan law. This is the figure of demonstration of all or none law in heart muscle of heart. Okay, this is at the subthreshold stimulus, at threshold stimulus, at suprathreshold stimulus. See here, in subthreshold stimulus there is no response at all in the both cases. See, this is the threshold and this is the suprathreshold. In both the cases the response is same. This is about the all or none law. Okay, next, staircase phenomenon. Staircase phenomenon. If a quiescent heart following application of second stanier ligature is stimulated repeatedly, keeping the interval between the stimuli just less than 10 seconds, the magnitude of first 3 to 4 contraction progressively increases. This is called staircase phenomenon. The magnitude of first 3 to 4 contraction increases progressively. Okay, this is called a staircase phenomenon. This figure represents the demonstration of staircase phenomenon in heart muscle of frog. Okay, if you see here, first 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, first 4 heights for tracing of first 4 contractions are increasing gradually. See, first 4 contractions are increasing gradually and the rest of them are remain same. See, this is about the staircase phenomenon. It appears that the staircase phenomenon violates the principle of all or none law, but in fact it is not so, because each stimulus alters the condition for the next stimulus. Each because each stimulus alters the condition for the next stimulus. There are three mechanics for staircase phenomenon. The amount of calcium ion released during each contraction is not completely pumped back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum, as the second stimulus is applied within 10 seconds. Therefore, some residual amount of calcium is left prior to the next stimulus. This increases the quantity of calcium available to the contractile machinery in the next stimulus. The calcium left in the previous contraction plus the calcium released by the present stimulus. Therefore, the second stimulus evokes a bigger response. Similarly, subsequent 2 to 3 stimuli progressively increase the magnitude of contraction. During the first contraction, the temperature in the myocardial cells increases, which enhances the enzyme activity for the muscle contraction. Therefore, the second stimuli starts under the beneficial effect of increased enzymatic activity of the first one. Similarly, few subsequent stimuli progressively increase the height of contraction. The first contraction decreases the viscosity of the sarcoplasm due to increased temperature. Thus, the resistance provided by the sarcoplasm for the second and subsequent contraction is significantly lower than the first one. This increases the magnitude of few subsequent contractions. Okay. Length tension relationship. The force of contraction is directly proportional to the initial length. The force of contraction is directly proportional to the initial length of the muscle fiber within the physiological limit, which is known as Frank-Starling's law of heart. With increase in length, the tension increases. With increase in length, the tension increases, reaches the peak, and then decreases. The length of muscle fiber of the heart. The length of muscle fiber of the heart chambers prior to contraction depends on the level of preload, which is end diastolic volume. Thus, as the ventricular filling increases, the increase in end diastolic volume, the stroke volume increases. This is called heterometric autoregulation of the cardiac output. See once again, length tension relationship. The force of contraction is directly proportional to the initial length of the muscle fiber within the physiological limit. This is known as the Frank-Starling law of heart. With increase in length, the tension increases, reaches a peak, and then decreases. The length of muscle fiber of the heart chambers prior to contraction depends on the level of preload, which is known as end diastolic volume. Thus, as the ventricular filling increases, the length in end diastolic volume, the stroke volume increases. This is called heterometric autoregulation of cardiac output. Okay. Next, frequency force relationship. Okay, frequency force relationship. Increase in force of contraction due to increase in frequency force relationship. Okay, frequency force relationship. Increase in force of contraction due to increase in heart rate. That means frequency is known as frequency force relationship. This is known as Bowditch phenomenon. It is known as Bowditch phenomenon as described by H.P. Dowditch. However, increase in myocardial performance is restricted to a limited increase in the frequency. Next, load velocity relationship. The relationship of velocity or shortening to a load imparted on muscle with which the muscle contracts is called load velocity relationship. The relationship of velocity or shortening to a load imparted on muscle with which the muscle contracts is called as load velocity relationship. Next, the velocity of contraction is inversely proportional with the load that acts against it. The velocity of muscle shortening or contraction decreases with increasing afterload. This means shortening is faster with lower loads and slower with higher loads. It should be noted that shortening velocity is maximum when there is no load. A student should not confuse the velocity of contraction with the force of contraction. See here, it should be noted that shortening velocity is maximum when there is no load. Shortening velocity maximum when there is no load. Okay. Don't confuse the velocity between the velocity of contraction with the force of contraction. Velocity and force. Okay. And this figure represents the relationship of velocity and afterload of contraction. Okay, load with velocity of contraction. Okay, see here, if the afterload increases, velocity, shortening velocity decreases. See, increase in afterload decreases the velocity. Okay, this is about this relationship of load with velocity of contraction. And this figure represents the demonstration of extrasystole and compensatory force. Okay, extrasystole and compensatory force. When there is extra stimulus occur, extrasystole is occurred. See, these are the normal, and here extra stimulus is applied and forms the extrasystole. Okay, and the gap which we call as compensatory force, and the next the systole that forms is post extrasystole potentiation. We call this as, just after this compensatory force, we call this as post extrasystole potentiation. Okay guys, if you like this video, like, share and subscribe. Thank you.